Story 1. This story, it changed how I see fishing. Hell, it changed how I see quiet people sitting near me. I don't think I'll ever go out alone again after what happened that night. I'm serious. I packed up my gear, threw it in the back of my truck, and headed out to this little lake I know. It's not one of those popular spots where everyone crowds around. Nah, this place is tucked away in the woods, pretty much off the map. Perfect for a guy who just wants to be left alone. The sun was starting to set by the time I got there. I parked my truck, grabbed my gear, and walked down to the water. The lake was so still it looked like glass, not a single ripple. I set up my spot, folding chair, tackle box, cooler, and cast my line. Everything was perfect. The air was cool, the water was quiet, and for a while, it was just me and nature. But then I noticed him. At first, I thought I was alone out there. But when I glanced to my right, I saw someone sitting a little ways down the shore. He was sitting real still, just staring out at the water. I couldn't see his face too well. He had a hat pulled down low, and his back was kind of hunched over. I thought, guess I'm not the only one who knows about this spot. No big deal, right? People fish all the time. It's not like I owned the lake, but something about him, I don't know, it felt off. I tried to ignore it at first, focused on my own line, watched the sun dip lower, the sky turning darker, but every now and then my eyes would drift back to him. He never moved. I mean, not at all. No adjusting his hat, no shifting in his seat, nothing. Just sitting there, staring at the water like he was frozen in time. The sun finally dipped below the horizon, and it started getting dark. That's when the weird feeling really kicked in. I packed up my stuff, ready to call it a night. But before I left, I glanced over at the guy again. And there he was, still sitting there, in the exact same position. No flashlight, no lantern, no phone light, nothing. He was just sitting in the dark. I tried to brush it off. Maybe he liked fishing at night. Maybe he was waiting for something, I don't know. I tried to convince myself it wasn't weird, but it wasn't working. Something about him was wrong. I stood there for a minute, debating whether to go talk to him. Maybe he needed help. Maybe he was in trouble. But the longer I looked at him, the more my stomach twisted in knots. It was like my instincts were screaming at me to stay away. So, I decided to leave. I grabbed my stuff and started walking back to my truck. But halfway there, curiosity got the better of me. I turned around one last time to check on the guy, and I swear to God, he was gone. My heart skipped a beat. I scanned the shoreline, looking for any sign of him, but there was nothing. No movement, no sound. Just the quiet lake and the trees. I stood there, feeling like an idiot. Maybe he'd packed up and left while I wasn't looking, but how? I'd only looked away for a few seconds, and I hadn't heard a single splash, footstep, or rustle. It didn't make sense. I shook it off and kept walking. I told myself I was just tired. Maybe I imagined it, but when I got to my truck, there he was, standing by the water, same spot, same position. I froze. My hands started shaking and my mouth went dry. How the hell did he get back there so fast? I blinked. He wasn't sitting anymore. He was standing, but still not moving, just standing there, staring at the water, like before. Then something made me step closer. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I'd say something to him. Maybe I wanted to see if he was real. But as I got closer, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. His head, it was twisted all the way around, facing me. I swear to God, it was like someone had turned his head a full 180 degrees. His body was facing the water, but his head, it was twisted backward, staring right at me. And his eyes, they weren't normal. They were wide open, blank, like he wasn't really looking at me. More like he was looking through me. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding so hard I thought it was gonna explode. I couldn't take my eyes off him. He didn't move, just stood there with that twisted head staring at me. And then He smiled. Not a big smile. Just a little twitch at the corner of his mouth. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen. It felt like forever. Finally, I snapped out of it, turned around, and ran to my truck. I didn't look back. I jumped in, started the engine, and peeled out of there, tires kicking up gravel. As I sped down the road, I kept glancing in the rearview mirror. And for a split second, I swear I saw him standing at the edge of the road, his twisted head still watching me. I drove and drove. Didn't stop until I was home, locked inside my house with every light on. And even now, I can't get that image out of my head. That twisted head, those blank eyes, that smile. I don't go fishing anymore. And if I ever see someone sitting by the water, staring too still, I won't stick around to see if they turn their head. Story 2. I packed up my gear and drove out to this little lake I know. It's not on any map, and that's what I like about it. No crowds, no loud families, just me and the water. The lake sits at the end of a dirt road, surrounded by trees. I've been going there for years, and I've never seen another soul. The day was perfect. The sky was clear, the air smelled like pine, and the water was so still it looked like glass. I set up my gear at my usual spot, this little patch of shore with a log I like to sit on. After casting my line, I settled in, watching the bobber gently drift on the surface. Hours passed and nothing. No bites. Just the wind rustling the trees and the occasional splash from a fish jumping in the distance. I didn't mind. Sometimes fishing is more about the waiting than the catching, but then it started to feel different. You know when the air changes and you can feel it in your bones? That weird, heavy feeling. I glanced around, but everything looked normal. Trees, water, sky, all the same. But I kept having that feeling, like someone was watching me. And that's when I saw it. At first I thought it was a fish. Something broke the surface of the water a little ways out. Just a ripple, then nothing. I squinted, trying to see what it was, but it was too far. Maybe a big trout or a bass. I leaned forward, keeping my eyes on the water, and then I saw it again. This time it stayed above the surface longer, long enough for me to realize it wasn't a fish. It was a head, a human head, just barely peeking out of the water. I froze. My brain couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. There was a person, or at least part of one, in the middle of the lake, just staring at me. The water covered everything but their face, and it wasn't moving. I don't know how long I sat there, staring back at it. It felt like hours, but it was probably only a few seconds. My mind raced, trying to figure out what was happening. Was someone swimming out there? Drowning? But they weren't calling for help or splashing around. They were just floating. Then the head tilted, not like a normal person tilting their head either. It moved slow, like it was trying to understand me. Its eyes locked onto mine, and I swear they looked right through me. That's when I realized something was really wrong. The face didn't look alive. The skin was pale, almost gray, and the eyes, they didn't have any whites, just dark, empty holes. And the mouth, it was too wide, stretched out like a grin that didn't belong on a human face. I should have run. I should have packed up my stuff and left right then and there, but I couldn't move. The head sank back under the water, slow and smooth without a splash. For a moment I thought it was over. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I was tired, or the light was playing tricks on me. But then the water rippled again. Closer this time. It popped back up. That same face, that same too wide grin. Only now I could see more of it. The neck. It was too long. I blinked, thinking maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. But no, the head floated there, and the neck stretched down into the water. It wasn't right. No neck should be that long. It was like someone had taken a person and stretched them out like taffy. The neck swayed gently with the water like a snake. I took a nervous step back, my heart pounding in my chest. The head tilted again, and this time I swear it grinned wider. The neck moved, twisting and curling, like it was feeling the air around it. I couldn't look away. The neck just kept going, disappearing into the water. How long was it? 10 feet, 20? I couldn't tell. It seemed endless. And then the head spoke. At least, I think it did. I didn't hear it with my ears. It was more like a thought, but it wasn't mine. You see me. Those 3 words echoed in my head, cold and hollow. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. I shook my head, trying to clear it. What do you want? I whispered, not even sure if it could hear me. The head tilted again, that same slow, unnatural movement. I'm always here. My skin crawled. The neck twisted again, swaying like seaweed. I don't understand, I said. The head sank again, disappearing beneath the surface. I stood there, waiting, holding my breath, and then the water rippled and the head popped up again. But this time, it wasn't alone. Behind it, more heads were rising out of the water. Pale faces, dark eyes, grins stretched too wide, all with those impossibly long necks swaying and twisting like eels. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over my own feet. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The heads didn't move toward me. They just floated there, watching. And then they spoke, all at once, their voices echoing in my mind. You see us. I turned and ran. I didn't care about my fishing gear. I just ran as fast as I could. I could still hear their voices echoing in my head. You can't leave. Eventually I reached my truck. I scrambled into the driver's seat, my hands shaking so bad I could barely get the key in the ignition. When the engine finally roared to life, I floored it, speeding down the road without looking back. Even now, I don't know what those things were. I've tried to forget about them, but they're always there, lurking in the back of my mind. And sometimes, when I'm lying in bed at night, I swear I can hear their voices again. You see us? I don't go fishing anymore. That's it for now. I hope you enjoy this story. If you did, check out more of my videos on the screen above or visit my channel for even more. Don't forget to subscribe for future videos. Stay safe and take care.